Imagine this. You've been working hard, saving a little here and there, and suddenly you look at your account and realize you've hit $10,000. It might not sound life-changing compared to the millionaires you see online, but the truth is, this number changes everything. Why? Because N10K isn't just money, it's proof. Proof that you can be disciplined, that you can build momentum, and that you can create stability most people never reach. With N10K, everything makes a good investment. Emergencies don't control you, opportunities become possible, and your mindset shifts from survival to strategy. It's the point where you stop worrying about every bill and start thinking about your future. Man, that's why saving your first all-in 10K is one of the most powerful milestones in personal finance. And today, I'll show you exactly why everything in your life begins to change once you cross that line. When you first start working towards saving money, it often feels like every dollar disappears before you can even set it aside. Bills, rent, food, and the occasional unexpected expense seem to eat away at anything left over. But once you've managed to build up and cross that 10,000 threshold, something shifts dramatically. It's not just about the cash sitting in your account. It's about what that cushion represents in your life. Having N10K saved is the financial equivalent of building a strong foundation before constructing a house. It's stability, it's breathing room. It's the difference between living in constant worry and finally experiencing a sense of control over your financial life. That cushion changes the way you think, the way you make decisions, and the way you approach opportunities. Consider emergencies. Before you had this cushion, even something small like a flat tire or a medical bill could throw your budget into chaos. You might have had to swipe a credit card and watch the balance grow with interest, or worse, and borrow money from friends or family. But with N10K sitting in savings, those unexpected events are no longer disasters, they're inconveniences. You have the peace of mind of knowing you can handle life surprises without it sending you spiraling into debt. That alone reduces an enormous amount of stress, and stress is often the biggest reason people make poor financial choices. Investment, but it goes deeper than just emergencies. Having that cushion changes the way you perceive risk. Without savings, you're forced to cling to security at all costs. Investment, often staying stuck in jobs or situations you don't like simply because you can't afford to make a change. But when you have N10K, suddenly you can make choices with more confidence. You can afford to think long-term. Investment. If an opportunity comes along that might require an upfront investment, whether it's moving to a better city for work, taking a course to learn a valuable skill, or even starting a small side hustle, you're no longer paralyzed by fear. That money acts as a buffer that allows you to consider options that were previously off limits. Psychologically, this is incredibly powerful. The moment you see a 5-figure balance in your savings account, your relationship with money transforms. It gives you confidence because you've proven to yourself that you're capable of discipline and delayed gratification. Instead of focusing on how to stretch your money from paycheck to paycheck, investment, you begin to focus on how to grow it. That's a huge mindset shift because it moves you from a scarcity mentality, constantly worrying there isn't enough, to an abundance mentality, where you can start to think strategically about your future. Even in your everyday life, decisions start to look different. When you don't have savings, every purchase feels heavy. Buying a new phone, going on a trip, investment, or even covering car repairs can feel like the end of the world financially. But with N10K behind you, you don't have to second guess every choice in fear of going broke. That doesn't mean you spend recklessly, but it does mean you spend from a position of strength, not desperation. The presence of savings brings a calmness to your decision, making that simply doesn't exist when you're one emergency away from being broke. Another overlooked benefit is how others begin to perceive you. While they may not know your exact bank balance, your sense of security becomes visible in the way you carry yourself. Employers, colleagues, even business partners can sense the difference when you're not desperate. Desperation leaks into conversations, negotiations, and career decisions. But when you have that cushion, you can make decisions from a place of power. You can negotiate a job offer without fear of losing it because you're not relying on that paycheck just to survive. You can decline opportunities that don't align with your goals instead of grabbing at anything out of financial necessity. That shift alone opens doors that people without savings simply can't access. Most importantly, having N10K creates momentum. It's no longer about whether you can save, you've already proven that. It becomes about how you can leverage what you've built. Your financial cushion becomes the base from which you can invest, grow, and expand. Every dollar you save beyond that adds to your confidence and your options. Investment, and while N10K might not make you rich, it gives you something that's far more valuable: control. Control over your time, control over your decisions, and control over your financial future. That control is what changes everything. Because once you've experienced it, you'll never want to go back to living without it. When you finally reach that point of having $10 saved, something shifts inside you that goes far beyond the number sitting in your bank account. Investment. It's a psychological transformation, a shift from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. Up until that point, most people operate from survival mode. Every paycheck feels like it's already spent before it arrives. Every bill feels like a burden. Every unexpected expense feels like a crisis. That's scarcity, always feeling like there's not enough, always worrying that the bottom will fall out. But once you hit that milestone of 100K, you suddenly realize you're not playing the same game anymore. For the first time, you have room to breathe. And with that comes an entirely different way of looking at money and life. The scarcity mindset is powerful because it chains you to short-term thinking. When you don't have savings, you're forced to focus only on the immediate. You might stay at a job you dislike because you can't afford the gap between paychecks if you were to quit. You might buy things on credit because you don't have the cash to pay outright, even though it costs more in the long run. You might avoid opportunities like starting a business or investing in your own education because you're too busy trying to survive today. This mindset doesn't leave much room for growth because all your energy is spent putting out fires. But once you've accumulated $10 and the chains begin to break, that money represents a cushion that allows you to start thinking ahead. Instead of asking, how do I make it through this week? You begin asking, and how can I position myself for the next year? That's the beginning of an abundance mentality. You start to see opportunities where before you only saw obstacles. You recognize that you have choices, and having choices changes everything. This shift shows up in the way you make financial decisions. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, even small expenses feel massive. Something like car repairs or a medical bill can derail your entire plan. But with what 100K saved, those moments are no longer crises. They're manageable. That simple change lowers stress. And when stress goes down, your ability to make rational, strategic decisions goes up. Suddenly, instead of reacting to every challenge, investment, you can plan ahead and think more clearly. This alone puts you in a position that most people never get to experience. Another way the mindset shift shows up is in how you view risk. Before hitting 100K, any risk feels unbearable. You can't afford to take a chance on a new job, a new skill, or an investment because the consequences of failure are too high. But once you have that financial buffer, risk becomes manageable. You can afford to step into something uncertain because you know you're not one bad week away from disaster. This doesn't mean you become reckless. It means you can finally make calculated moves without fear consuming you. That's where growth starts to happen, because growth always requires some level of risk. Perhaps the most important part of this shift is what it does to your identity. Saving your first 100K proves to yourself that you are capable of discipline, investment, consistency, and delayed gratification. It's no longer just an idea, it's proof. You start to see yourself as someone who is capable of building wealth, of managing money, of making responsible decisions. And once you see yourself differently, your habits naturally begin to align with that identity. You're less likely to waste money on things that don't matter because you now understand the value of every dollar. You're more likely to seek out opportunities that compound your savings rather than drain it. You become focused on growth because you've already tasted what progress feels like. The abundance mindset also allows you to think beyond yourself. With scarcity, it's all about survival. With abundance, you can think about creating, building, and providing not just for today, but for the future. You can start planning for things like investments, retirement, or even helping others. Investment. You can start looking at money as a tool, not a burden. That's a massive psychological leap, and it changes the trajectory of your life. The bottom line is this: saving 100K doesn't just change your bank balance. It changes the way you think investment, the way you make decisions, and the way you see the world. You stop asking, how do I survive? And start asking, how do I grow? That shift is what separates people who stay stuck from people who build wealth. It's not about the money itself. It's about the mindset it unlocks. Once you've crossed that threshold, you'll never look at money the same way again because you'll understand that abundance is possible. Investment. And once you've tasted abundance, you'll never settle for scarcity again. Reaching $10 in savings unlocks a door that most people never realize exists: the ability to access opportunities that were previously out of reach. Before you have that cushion, life feels like it's happening to you. You're forced to accept whatever comes your way because you don't have the flexibility to choose differently. Every unexpected expense or new challenge has the power to derail your finances, so you can't even consider investing, starting a side project, or taking a calculated risk. But once you've saved on 100K, the dynamic shifts completely. Instead of living on defense, constantly trying to protect yourself from disaster, you can finally go on offense and use money as a tool to create more opportunities for yourself. The first and most obvious area where this becomes clear is in avoiding debt. When you don't have savings, even small financial surprises can push you into using credit cards or borrowing money at high interest rates. That creates a cycle that traps people for years because every payment you make goes toward interest instead of progress. But with 110K sitting in your account, you're insulated. You can cover emergencies without borrowing, which saves you thousands of dollars over time. That freedom to avoid debt is an opportunity most people without savings don't have. And it's one of the most valuable benefits of building that cushion. Beyond avoiding debt, savings give you the ability to say yes to opportunities that others have to decline. For example, imagine a chance to relocate to a city with better career prospects. Without savings, the cost of moving, securing housing, investment, and covering initial expenses would be overwhelming. But with 100K, you can actually consider it. Or maybe you want to enroll in a certification course that could double your income in a few years. Most people stuck in survival mode can't justify the upfront cost. With a cushion, you can invest in yourself, knowing you'll still have enough left over for emergencies. These are the types of opportunities that change the trajectory of your life, and they only become available once you have savings behind you. Another area where savings create opportunity is in entrepreneurship or side hustles. Many people dream of starting a business, but dreams remain dreams when you're broke because you simply can't take the financial risk. Having 100K doesn't mean you can launch a massive company, but it does mean you can experiment. You can test an idea, buy equipment, or invest in marketing without putting your survival at risk. Even if the first attempt doesn't succeed, you still have a cushion to fall back on. And that safety net allows you to keep trying until something sticks. That's an opportunity that people living paycheck to paycheck simply cannot afford to pursue. Savings also allow you to invest in a way that builds long-term wealth. When you're broke, the idea of investing feels impossible. You can barely cover your expenses, let alone put money into assets. But with 100K, you can start putting money into things like index funds, retirement accounts, or even real estate. While Fund 10K won't make you rich overnight, it's enough to start building a foundation where compounding can begin working in your favor. The earlier you start investing, the more powerful that compounding becomes. And having savings allows you to start earlier than most. But perhaps the most underrated opportunity that the 100K creates is the freedom to say no. When you're broke, you're forced to say yes to everything. Yes to jobs you don't like, investment. Yes to deals that don't benefit you. Yes to situations that drain you because you can't afford to walk away. With savings, you gain the ability to decline opportunities that don't align with your goals. That might mean turning down a low-paying job, avoiding a bad business partnership, or simply not engaging in situations that compromise your values. The ability to say no is a form of power, and that power comes directly from having financial security. The truth is, most people think of saving money as boring or restrictive, but in reality, saving is what gives you options. Investment. It's not about depriving yourself. It's about buying freedom. Every dollar in your savings account represents a future decision you'll get to make on your terms. And when you cross the 110K mark, you suddenly realize just how many doors begin to open. Whether it's avoiding debt, investing in yourself, seizing career opportunities, starting a business, or simply saying no to what doesn't serve you, and savings transform the way you interact with the world. At the end of the day, money is not just about survival. It's about leverage. With no savings, you have none. With 100K, you finally start to have some. And that leverage, that ability to access opportunities others can't afford, is what begins to set you apart. It's the starting point of building wealth, because wealth is built not by working harder, but by positioning yourself to take advantage of the right opportunities at the right time. And the truth is, you can't do that if you're broke, but you can once you've saved 100K. Saving your first $10,000 is often seen as the hardest step. Investment. But what most people don't realize is that it's also the most important. It's not because 10K makes you rich, far from it, but because it builds momentum. It's proof that you can set a financial goal, stick to it, and see it through. That momentum creates a ripple effect that changes the way you handle money, the way you set goals, and the way you think about your future. Once you've reached that milestone, you're no longer asking, can I do this? You already know you can. The only question now is, what's next? The habits that helped you reach 110K are the same habits that will carry you to 50K, the 100K, and beyond. Think about it. To save that much investment, you had to develop discipline. You had to track your spending, cut back on unnecessary purchases, and stay consistent over time. That consistency doesn't just vanish after you reach the goal. In fact, it becomes easier, because you've already proven to yourself that you're capable of sacrifice and long-term thinking. Saving money becomes part of your identity. You are someone who can delay gratification for bigger rewards down the line. That shift in identity is what fuels long-term financial success. But momentum isn't just about habits. It's also about compounding. Once you have 100K, you can start putting your money to work. Maybe that means investing in index funds, Investment, opening a retirement account, or buying assets that generate passive income. Even if the return seems small at first, compounding begins to kick in, and over time, those small returns grow into something meaningful. A 7% annual return on 10,000 is 700 in a year. That may not seem like much, but it's 700 you didn't have to work for. As you continue saving and investing, that number grows larger and larger until it becomes a serious source of income. Investment. The key is that you've crossed the line from only working for money to letting money work for you. That's where real wealth begins. Another way momentum shows up is in confidence. Before you saved $100K, financial goals might have felt impossible, but now you know that consistency pays off. That confidence makes you set bigger goals and chase bigger opportunities. If you've done it once, why not do it again? Only bigger. Maybe now the target is 25K, or maybe it's buying your first rental property or building an investment portfolio. The point is that you start thinking bigger because you know that small, consistent actions lead to big results over time. Without that first 100K, it's hard to believe in yourself. With it, you know what's possible. Momentum also changes your perspective on income. Many people focus only on saving money, but once you have a cushion, then you start to think more about how to increase your earnings. That might mean asking for a raise, switching jobs, starting a side hustle, or building a business. Investment. The 100K you've already saved gives you the security to take calculated risks in pursuit of higher income. Instead of fearing what will happen if things don't work out, you know you have a buffer. That allows you to play offense, meant to pursue opportunities that can accelerate your progress far faster than cutting expenses alone ever could. And here's the thing, momentum isn't linear. It compounds just like money does. At first, it takes years to save your first 100K. But the second 100K comes faster because you've built the habits, the systems, and the mindset to make saving automatic. The third comes even faster because now your investments are starting to contribute. Over time, the process snowballs, and what once felt impossible becomes normal. That's why the first 100K is often called the hardest. It's uphill, but once you crest that hill, the rest of the journey builds speed. What's even more powerful is that this momentum doesn't just affect your bank account. It spills over into every area of your life. The discipline you develop with money often translates into discipline in other areas: health, career, investment, relationships. You begin to see the value of delayed gratification, of consistency, of long-term vision. That mindset shift compounds just like your money does, and before you know it, you're not just financially ahead, you're personally ahead. At the core of it all, the reason everything changes after 100K is because you've proven that wealth isn't about luck, it's about behavior. Investment. It's not about waiting for the perfect opportunity, but about creating the right habits and letting momentum do the heavy lifting. That first 100K is the spark. It may not make you rich on its own, but it ignites a fire that, if nurtured, can grow into financial independence. The journey to wealth is long, but it begins with that first milestone. And once you've reached it, you'll never see money or yourself the same way again.